Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Friday edition of Total Health Live. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Christopher Vogelmann. Monika Klein, our nutritionist to the stars, as I like to call her, has had her computer restart just before we've gone live. So this is a very interesting broadcast, just to let you know that these are the kinds of things that can and do happen when you're involved in live broadcasting. In fact, she's sending me a little message now. I'm wondering if she's going to join us by phone, which is a possibility. I think she's going to have to join by phone. I'm going to send her a little message. There's no place like phone. There's no place like phone. All right. So we're going to put that in through there. So we're checking in. We're going to give you some of the updates that we've been looking at. Bringing her over here. Good. And so we've been dealing with a lot of things here in San Diego. I don't know if wherever you are in the world, you may have some similar things. There seems to be potentially a fourth spike based on all of those wonderful spring breakers who have headed to the shores of places like Myrtle Beach and Miami Beach and other places. In fact, we've seen the curfews been imposed in Miami not too long ago because things have just kind of gotten out of hand. I think we're all suffering from a little bit of cabin fatigue, a lot of pandemic fatigue. And the reality is that, a lot of people just want to get out and get back to the old normal, even though we're still hanging on to, we should be hanging on to a bit of the new normal with respect to mask wearing, social distancing, cleaning your hands. It's interesting. Even the simple use of hand sanitizer has become an issue. And I used to do this. I don't know if you've ever done this before. But I used to take the hand sanitizer, put it on my hands, rub it a little bit. And then what I would do is I would wipe it like on my pants or wipe it on a paper towel or something like that. And that's not the good way to do it. And Monica's with us. Monika Klein, nutritionist to the stars.
I am back.
How's your computer?
I don't know, but I was having issues with my laptop yesterday, and I called Spectrum, and they said, well, it's probably nothing if it's just on your laptop, but then it turned out to be on my TV and perhaps this desktop as well. So.
Well, yeah, because you had an automatic restart. I'm wondering if you just had some sort of uploading of new settings, because they keep changing the software and the firmware from time to time. So.
Well, I just got a security complete message window.
Good. Now are you feeling more secure now?
Utterly.
Yeah, utterly.
Utterly.
I was just talking about the potential of a fourth peak based on spring break and a few other things like that. And I mentioned
parties.
What's that?
Birthday parties, not mine.
Hey.
But
hush.
Some people.
Hush, little darling.
Well,
anyway,
I did have my birthday party, and that was fun.
That's good. I had a birthday party too. It was my sister, my wife, and stepson. That was it. We had a little pod.
I had my husband, myself, and a few of our caregivers, and that was it.
There you go. Yeah. Well, it's funny because my sister came, and I
met her. She was on our broadcast 2 weeks ago.
That's right. She was.
2 weeks ago.
A
month ago.
Yeah, you have to, to go back to New York. She actually had to get tested at a facility down near the border. And not the border. They do it at the airport. So the airport charges you something like, I think $180, like $179 and change. And it's near the Delta cargo entrance or something like that. So they moved it. There used to be one across the street at a hotel, but I guess the rent was too expensive at the hotel. So they moved it into an industrial area of the airport itself. And but it was a lot cheaper down by the border. So we went down to Las Americas, which are basically factory outlets here in San Diego, where you can see the border. You can see Mexico, you see the Mexican flag, and you can see all the barbed wire and the border patrols there. But they have these little.
Do it here. She had to do it here.
She had to do it here to go back to New York. Because this is considered a hot spot still. And New York State insists certain states you have to have the certification that you're COVID free to board the plane headed to New York. So New York's trying to avoid another disaster like spring of last year, where New York City was just the mega hotspot of the world.
The hub. That was the hub for sure.
Well, then in LA had taken over as the hub several months ago in terms of, and the LA variant is very virulent. It spreads easily. Anyway, so we took her down to the outlets, and they had these little kiosks. It was like a cube, almost something that you would see for like the old photo mats or the drive-through where they would cut your keys to, as you see in the shopping plaza. And they did it for $99.
Informal. It sounds very informal.
Well, no, it's a kiosk with the lab work and the lab material in there. There is a generator to the side of the kiosk and a porta potty. So the woman who's manning that stage there, she's in an air-conditioned
cannot
cube.
leave.
No, she can leave to go to the porta potty and come back again.
But she can't go very far.
No, not at all. So because somebody might step up and do it. Now, everything is done. It's scheduled by appointment.
How long did that process take your sister?
I did the swab in like the whole thing.
The whole process, driving there and waiting.
Oh, well, no, we drove her down there. So that's normally it's like a 15-minute ride for us. That's no big deal. And she was there for the appointment early, had to fill out a little bit of paperwork. So that took about 3 minutes. And then they wouldn't take her insurance though. So you had to pay cash. And so the actual swab plus the results, swab was nothing. She said it just tickles. It was
like an hour.
I'm trying to finish.
Detail. Okay.
God.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me your stories about being tested?
No, I don't have any stories, but I'm just trying to figure out how long it took because that's what I'm curious about. How long the whole process.
So the drive back and forth is a half hour. So
got it. Check half hour.
Check half hour to drive. Paperwork.
I hope you're all still with us.
Paperwork 3 minutes. Yeah, I hope those of you who can stay for beyond this 3 minutes. So we're at 33 minutes
now total.
And so the gathering of it is probably 20 seconds. So we're at 33 minutes, 20 seconds. And then the results were available. They said come back in 15 minutes. They were ready. They just waved at us in 10 minutes. So the total time commitment was 43 minutes, 20 seconds. Is that okay?
You know what? I think you need Monika honey lozenges for all that talking you just did.
I'm good.
Or you can do propolis kind.
Actually, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get some D3 and some vitamin C.
And I did want to talk a little bit about these.
Here's my C. These are mega horse pills.
Your C. I see your C.
See my C? Where's my D?
It's a good thing I have everything very handy here because
I keep it in the cabinet. It's in the cabinet next to me.
This is my C, which is esterol. I love this brand. I've been using it for a long, long time. And this is my vitamin D3 that I don't use all the time, but definitely, I mean, I was not feeling all that great yesterday, had a little sore throat. The minute I took my little protocol, which is D3, well, I take magnesium too, but D3, oregano oil, vitamin C, and zinc, and the D3. I think that's it. That's all I take.
I'm taking mine live on air. So if I do choke, check out the size of these suckers.
Yeah.
These are big.
So these are really great for any kind of they're great for your immune enhancement, any kind of feelings of sore throat or scratchiness. Monika honey lozenges, I kind of like, this is my favorite, the Monika honey lozenges, natural blackcurrant flavor. So, I mean, it's not like a menthol, like a Halls or, some of the more natural forms, but it does have, Monika honey is known for immune enhancement. So it's really, and it does have some vitamin C, 6% I see.
Speaking of vitamin C, I will tell you that Ester C goes great with coffee.
There you go.
That's been my experience now.
Yummy. Okay,
yummy.
good. So that's my protocol usually.
Okay.
It's the zinc, the oregano oil, the vitamin C, vitamin D, and am I missing something? I don't know, but I take biotin too, but that's for a different reason. But that is my little protocol. But everyone is different. Everyone's unique, and I'm all my supplements are dropping. Excuse me.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, so we're going to talk about, so boosting your immune system is super, super, super important these days.
Yes.
It's always a good idea, whether you're concerned about COVID or you're concerned about the common cold, or thank God we don't have Ebola running around this country. That would be, can you imagine what that would be in a pandemic, an Ebola pandemic?
You mean a double demic?
Gee whiz, that would have been horrible.
A double demic.
Yeah. And there is strong likelihood that we will see other pandemics in our lifetime just because the world is so incredibly interconnected now. And it's easy to travel from one part of the globe to the other in 24 to 26 hours.
We will have an epidemic of epidemics.
Yeah, it's quite possible. So that's why it's good to be involved in health promotion, which is better than the term disease prevention, by boosting your immune system and doing what you can to strengthen your system and be resistant as much as possible. Because even if you do catch something, so to speak, your reaction will probably be far less than people who have not boosted their immunity.
So rather than health promotion, which I know is a term that's been used for a long time, health consciousness, might even be even better. Health consciousness, being aware what you need to do. And you do need to take action, and action could be non-action. Action could be non-action. Action could be just being quiet, getting sleep, getting enough rest. So just being aware of what you need, not just aware that health exists and there, are supplements that exist, but what do you need? What does your body, mind, spirit need to feel balanced and well? To feel
Ben
well.
and Jerry's New York double fudge chunk.
Does that mean you have succumbed?
No, actually, I haven't had any.
Haven't had any for almost a year?
I think I had it around my birthday. I think they bought me a pint. So you're talking about 10 months with no ice cream. I think that's pretty remarkable for somebody who's addicted as I am. So
I'm going to do a coaching moment for a moment. Maybe it's more of a wife nagging moment, but you think you had ice cream on your birthday?
Pretty sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure I did. I mean, I don't track every single thing in my long-term and short-term memery. If I were to ask you, what did you eat?
But something so significant as ice cream, because
here's my counter argument, which is I think it has become less significant. So for me, it is actually less significant, despite the fact I just said, hey, I want New York double fudge. So it's interesting to me that my desire for it has lessened because my exposure to it has lessened.
Well, it's almost like there is no desire.
It's pretty neutral at this point.
Yeah, and
in fact, I found it to be too sweet.
Yeah, that's the beauty of altering habits and conquering habits, I guess. Bad habits, conquering bad habits. There's a technique that I do. I've been doing it for years and years called neuro-emotional technique. And the whole premise that was developed by chiropractor Scott Walker in your neck of the woods, actually in San Diego. And the whole premise is for you to be neutral, to not have a charge anymore. So whatever it is doesn't control you anymore. So it's to be okay with. I mean, that's a sort of like a part of the whole therapy treatment, or the whole protocol is like, I'm okay with having cravings. I'm okay with having ice cream. I'm okay with without ice cream in my life, for example. So it's interesting.
Yeah, we've had a comment that I missed. I was going to say hello to one of our international watchers who has unfortunately left us. So maybe on the replay, you'll be able to see your name, Gurab. I think that's probably a fairly decent pronunciation. If I've gotten it wrong, please let me know.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. I hope you have questions.
Questions. We have answers.
We hopefully
they're the right answer.
Well, sometimes there is no right answer. Sometimes it's many little right answers.
Oh my God, you're speaking very much like someone who is an Ayurvedic practitioner.
Yes.
Hey, and speaking of stuff, we're going to talk about review of symptoms. We were talking about in our little outline for today.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I was just reviewing that because you have little sniffles, or you have like fatigue, or you have a sore throat, and all of a sudden do I have it? Do I have it? Well, the most prominent, actually, the most prominent 70% of people who have COVID is headache, a headache. Now, and a headache, you can have a headache for many causes. Headaches can be caused for many things, but that is number one. And then this lack of taste, this loss of taste, that's high too. And chills, and
fever is still a big one.
Yeah, fever is a big one. But actually, the number one is the headache.
Interesting.
The percentage is 70%, I think, of people who have COVID have a headache.
Wow.
So it's sort of a combination of all of these things. You won't have all of them, but if you have quite a few of them, then there's a problem. I had someone come into my house last week who was supposed to be working, and she said she wasn't feeling well. Well, first of all, you should not come to work if you're not feeling well, especially if you're taking care of a very severely ill patient. But she had all the symptoms except for a fever. And I said, you need to leave right now. You need to leave right now because I'm feeling extremely vulnerable and exposed. So you need to leave right now.
Oh my gosh. I just went into our group, the Total Health Live group, and I am so sorry to those of you who are watching and want to interact with us more. We have 5 requests to join, and I've just approved you all. I haven't been in there a while. I haven't been in there a while, so we're approaching the 100 mark of our little intimate group. So that's
great. So anyway, what I was saying is that if you do have any of these symptoms, and you should just stay home. Please stay home. And there's also a possibility of a false negative. So even if you do have a test and you're having symptoms, I mean, go with the symptoms, because the symptoms are really the best indicator of something not quite right. Yeah,
I would agree with the symptoms. It reminds me of spoke about somebody last night. We were talking about something that was relative. Oh, this was actually on a Zoom call yesterday, and talking about symptoms and how structure and function do not necessarily connect with each other. I've had people who 0 symptoms for a long, long period of time, and you take an X-ray of their neck because they're complaining of stiffness. All the discs are flattened, there's bone spurs and all kinds of things, but they were asymptomatic, no symptoms, yet they still had the problem underneath. And it reminds me of the asymptomatic carrier of COVID-19, because they have no symptoms, but they still have the problem, so-called problem.
Right. And so that's sort of not the same.
The opposite.
What I'm saying.
It's the opposite of it. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you might not have. You might have it, but you don't have symptoms for it. And I know I've mentioned several times the H. pylori infection. It may always, once it's in your blood, it will always be in your blood work. But it may not be active. And that's like with a lot of different types of infections. So,
the top symptoms again were headache, fatigue, chills,
temperature. And loss of taste.
Loss of taste. Yeah. The loss of taste and smell.
I think that's actually number 2.
Yeah.
Loss of taste and then temperature. I mean, categorically, I don't know if we can categorize them, but there were percentages in this particular report that I'm citing, which I mean, it's great to have someone like Dr. John Campbell who can do a lot of the research, and I can just, share it with you because
you can piggyback on his good work.
John Campbell, yes, indeed.
John Campbell. Hey, so which vaccine is better? Are there any new reviews of Johnson & Johnson versus Moderna?
It's interesting. I had a conversation with a director of nursing for a pharmaceutical company yesterday, who is the director of nursing for this company who provides IVIG treatment, which is intravenous immunoglobulin medication. So he said a lot of people he's hearing a lot of reports still about the Moderna second shot, symptoms. And thank God, 2 weeks ago, when we were last on, my husband had his second shot, Moderna, and fine, no problem. He was
perfect.
just good. And then I had a nurse here. He had a Pfizer and had flu symptoms for 24 hours, so he couldn't work. So it all depends. And then I heard something interesting about if you have Neanderthal genetics, you are protected against contracting COVID. So we don't know.
How do you determine Neanderthal genetics? That Neanderthal are us?
You do the ancestry test.
The ancestry test. Okay.
I have a 23andMe, and I do have Neanderthal, so I guess I'm protected.
Am I supposed to? But you would take offense if I referred to you as a Neanderthal.
I know, and it actually was a negative connotation, but they've discovered more and more how extremely wonderful Neanderthals were, in fact. And they were in the Neander Valley in Germany. That's where they were.
I wonder if I've got some of that.
You probably do. You probably do. Well, who knows? I mean, you'd have to do the test.
Hey, somebody.
I'm not sure if all genetic tests do it, though.
Christopher Vogelmann says thanks for watching.
Who's that?
This guy. Check him out.
Oh, yes, him.
Yeah, that's him.
So anyway, I mean, this is not from just a random kind of guess. It actually came from a physician who is a pediatrician. Anyway, we are still doing lots of investigation, lots of research. Everyone's trying to figure it out. Why are some people reacting to the vaccines?
Don't worry, we'll figure it out in about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that every week. We say that we'll figure it out at some point. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating how that is, how it's unfolding.
Hey, and AstraZeneca's back on track in other places. So
my sister just got AstraZeneca yesterday, and in Canada, and she said her second dose is not going to. She's not going to get it for another 4 months. And I'm like,
wow,
that does not make sense. Apparently, she's 70% protected.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But
if you think about it, people getting flu shots in years gone by were only 50 to 60% protected against the flu. 70 actually sounds better than a flu shot.
Why weren't they getting a second shot? I mean, what is this second shot?
I don't know.
Because it's more deadly, and that's why we want.
You'll have to ask Health Canada. Well,
no, I don't think it's just Canada that is having these decisions, that they're making these decisions. I know why they're making the decisions, so more people can get some
initial, some protection.
Yeah, and of course, everyone that I speak to is not a big vaccination person. Will probably have to if they want to travel, unfortunately. But that still, I think there's still a fight to be had with regards to that.
Possibly. I mean, it depends, because the interesting thing is that every airline, for example, is a private business, and private businesses are not public. And so your rights actually end. Many of your rights actually end when you walk in the door to an airplane. You have to abide by the rules of the airline, of the cabin crew, and in particular, the captain of the plane. And most people don't realize that.
I suppose that's true. If you walk into another person's house, of course, it's sort of the same thing, right?
Yeah. It's private. It's private property, and people can enforce what they want to. Just because you have an airline ticket doesn't give you unlimited ability to do whatever you want.
Well, that's like any retail outlet, any restaurant.
Same thing. So, so some people, as we said, are still not going to take it what's the unless for? Unless they find more research, or unless they absolutely have to.
Unless usually it's travel. That's what I hear. How about you? Do you hear something?
I heard one that was very interesting, which was, there's a group who I follow. It's an options trading group out of Chicago, and they've been working remotely for a long time. They do broadcasts like we do, only it's real technical and super fun to watch. They're a very engaging bunch, but they've been all remote right now. And there is an issue that was brought up just this past week with two individuals, Tom Sosnoff and Dylan Radigan, where they were asking about the question, posing it, will having a vaccine be a precondition to coming back to work for this called tasting? And they can make that decision. And if you do, is it going to be challenged in court or this or that? And one of the individual who is in charge, this guy Tom, he was saying, well, he says, it's my house my rules. And he said, and it's not a precondition for working for us, but you won't be allowed into the office. You'll have to work remotely from here on in if you don't take the vaccine.
And a lot of people will opt for that if they,
Maybe that's the solution. But the
yeah.
challenge is in your career. If you're not showing up in the office, I tend to think you're not going to do as well income wise, unless you're some super genius person.
Well, I mean, that's not the case. It's certainly not the case in the last year. And there's been such an immense trend towards working at home anyway in the last at least 5 years. So I don't think that's an indicator of advancement. I really don't.
Well, I mean, if it depends on if you're the owner of the business and
depends on the company too, right?
And you have the HR. Yeah, it's a company, and he owns the company. He can certainly make that rule. And I will tell you that from personal experience, the people who work for this company, for the most part, do broadcast from within the studio, because the studio has all the charts and all the fancy equipment and everything. And the quality of the broadcast from Zoom or something else, even StreamYard, is not going to be as great, because they're performers, broadcasters, is not going to be as great as if they actually do their performance in front of cameras in the studio. And so to enter the studio, if entering the studio is a prerequisite for becoming a successful broadcaster for this broadcasting company, insisting that you go remotely, I believe that would kind of decrease it decreases the quality of the images and therefore the quality of your work product.
I mean, broadcasting is such a visual medium. So of course, I mean, we see, mainstream media, all media, they are doing a lot of stuff in studio. So that is a little bit different. I mean, it's not it's a specific kind of industry.
Yeah.
So it probably doesn't carry out through all industries.
But I thought it was just very interesting. It may be a prerequisite to boarding an airplane. So you may see certain people.
I mean, it could be a prerequisite for anything, but some things doesn't make sense. You can do it anywhere. I mean, you can do it anywhere. But yeah, I mean, we've definitely become accustomed to the Zoom look, even in media, even on mainstream media. I mean, we see it all the time. Even the award shows are doing the Zoom.
But less so. The Oscars are actually going to be outdoors this time.
Well, yeah, and so were part of it. So were the Grammys, partially. So it's partially there, but it may be very, very skeletons crew and skeleton people sitting at their tables.
Hey, speaking of those of us who are not just skeletons, we have a couple of questions and answers here.
The skeletal questions
these are not skeletal questions. These are skeletons with flesh and nerves and other things.
These are real people.
Real people with real questions. Matt from Montreal.
Montreal.
So Matt is asking this question. He says, "It's a funny thing that happens every time I eat certain things. I get headaches or stomach pains. Do I have allergies or food intolerance to these particular foods? And how can I find out?"
Well, the best way to find out is take things out of your diet and then reintroduce one thing at a time and see what happens, see if the symptoms come back. But it's really important to reintroduce one thing at a time for about a 2-3 week period and see what happens. And then test that out, take it out, add something else. And that's a good way. You can also do some testing. There are all sorts of allergy tests, blood tests, saliva tests, even stool tests, where you can see if you do have allergies. And those are probably better than just going to an allergist and getting, the skin prick tests. Although, I mean, all of those things will give you some information. But
I think the
more metabolic functional tests will be a little dive deeper and give you more information.
But it's good advice. Just initially remove them from your diet and then reintroduce them. Sometimes what's interesting, you can remove certain items from your diet for maybe a month or two, and you reintroduce them and you don't have the same effect that you had before. Your body got to reset itself.
It's true. And, a classic thing I used to share with my clients all the time is, some of the top 3 allergens were, wheat and citrus, like orange and dairy. And what do people have every day for breakfast? Orange juice, toast, and
a bowl of cereal with milk.
A bowl of cereal or a glass of milk. So it's the repetitiveness that can cause this this potential sensitivity.
Yeah.
So if you take it out for a while, reintroduce it, see what happens. But again, one at a time. And by the way, these functional tests, whether it's stool, salivary, skin, not skin, blood, they are somewhat expensive. So this is a little bit less of an expensive way to determine what might be the problem for you.
Yeah, good. Do it the easy way first, and then if you're not seeing the results that you want, maybe it's time for more tests.
Exactly.
So, and likely if you're having these reactions, just stop eating this stuff. I mean, we used to do a lot of Ultra Clear and Ultra Inflamex protocols and all, and we would take away just about everything. We'd be eating veggies and grains, non-gluten grains like millet and amaranth and stuff, and then gradually reintroducing the types of foods that might irritate your system. So.
It's interesting. My husband has this. It's called Novosource. It's for a renal diet. It's sort of milkshakey, sort of Ensure-like, but a little bit more substantial than Ensure for renal patients. And he was drinking about 3 or 4 of those a day, and and I was trying to figure, because he had so much mucus and congestion, and then I was trying to figure out what was. So we reduced it to 2, and now I notice that even like right after just half a bottle, he'll start, having some congestion, a lot less, but it's still there.
I can tell you certain reactions. I remember very clearly to this day, if I had sulfured dry foods, either like sulfured prunes or sulfured apricots, I would start getting tight in the throat. I would start sneezing, and it was very interesting. I could take 1 or 2. If I had the 3rd sulfured apricot, all bets were off, and I just reacted severely.
Yeah. I know for me, I used to love pineapple and pineapple juice. And now if I have too much of it, I start getting the scratchy, and also my lips start feeling very tingly. And same thing with honeydew melon. I used to love it, and I can't have it now.
Interesting. Our bodies change over time. In fact, I developed tolerances to certain things, like as a kid, even our tastes. So as a child, I hated olives with a passion. Now I just love olives. So it's just, and I think some of that has to do with maybe your body also signals what is good for you and what you may be missing in terms of cravings, if you are healthier. I mean, like if I'm not craving chocolate ice cream, which is remarkable to me. So apparently my body doesn't need it right now.
Well,
it may never have needed it.
It never needed it.
Other than for emotional satisfaction.
Yeah, you don't have a deficiency of chocolate ice cream.
I don't have a New York chocolate double fudge deficiency syndrome.
Yeah, so it's these cravings that build up, and that's what sort of drives you. And so we want to take that away. And we don't know about Matt from Montreal's.
Matt, Montreal. So, I mean, it depends. The classic answer is it depends. It depends what you're eating. It depends how much of it you're eating and that sort of thing. So take things out. And as Monika and I were recommending, put things back in, but slowly, and just see what the reaction is.
Slowly.
Hey, speaking of slowly. Oh, this is actually harmonizes with what we were talking about earlier. So Renee from the Bronx in New York.
Hello.
Renee from the Bronx is asking, she says, I've been feeling unwell lately. How do I know it's not COVID? We just talked about that.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, check your symptoms. What kind of symptoms? If you have, I mean, I can't really say if you have more than 3 or more than 5 of the classic COVID symptoms, you probably have it. But I mean, if you think you have it,
get tested.
Or, sometimes when you have it and you're not feeling well, you don't want to go out and expose anybody else, or you just don't feel well enough to go out. So
months ago, you didn't want to stand in line.
Yeah.
Because you didn't feel good enough to stand in line.
Yeah. You don't feel good. You don't want to expose people. So just, look at when it started, these symptoms started, and stay home for 14 days.
Lay
just
low.
do it.
Lay low, Renee. If you can.
Lay low.
And
stay, don't visit. Yeah, just stay at home. Just don't
visit grandma in Queens. Stay in the Bronx.
Don't visit grandma.
Hey, so we have another, from Florida. Danny from Florida, DANI. So I'm assuming, Danny, you're female. It's a she. I mean, it's a she.
She.
She's a she.
She's a she.
She sells seashells by the seashore. She's in Sarasota. In Sarasota, you do
I
have
have a friend that
seashells.
just moved to Sarasota.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Does she know Danny?
She may now.
She may now. So look out for Danny. She says she states that I am ravenous all the time. I can't seem to control my appetite, and I'm craving lots of carbs at this time. What should I do?
Well, there's your answer. If you're craving carbs,
have some more spaghetti. No.
You're probably building up this tendency to want to eat more, and depending on what kind of carbs, are you eating empty carbs where you're not getting a nutrition? And if that's the case, then your body keeps wanting to eat so you can get the nutrition that you're needing. Your body needs to function. So what kind of carbs? If it's healthy carbs, well, there may be something else going on with you. But if I get a feeling that if you're craving them, there's something out of balance. It's probably
you might be producing too much insulin, for example. There might be an issue there.
Possibly, yeah. It could be possibly be a blood sugar issue. So you want to check your blood sugar, get your blood work checked, and see what your glucose levels are, and maybe even do an insulin level as well, or glucose tolerance.
Because cravings really do indicate there's a lack of something somewhere, and it probably isn't actually the carbs themselves.
It could be, though. It could be. What are you eating? Are you a healthy eater in the first place? It could be a blood sugar issue for sure.
Yeah, I found in my weight loss clinic that I had in DC, it was interesting, the phenomena that I saw most often, and this is, if we split them equal numbers of men and women, women were by far the carb cravers above and beyond men. Men were like, more the meat side, and women just couldn't wait to get their next pasta and bread.
Well, it's also the neurotransmitters like serotonin. You're going to increase serotonin. Carbohydrates will help increase serotonin, whereas the protein will increase more of the dopamine. So, and women need more serotonin. Serotonin levels drop much more quickly at certain times of the day for women. So that maybe, and again, maybe you're craving them more towards the end of the day. And I found this a lot in my work with clients is craving in the afternoon, like 4 and on into the evenings. And that's when you start eating these empty or these, carby foods, a lot of carby foods.
Yeah.
So, whether healthy or not, you start and then you can't stop. So that's another thing. And there are supplements that can help you with that as well.
Yep. I think that's one of the things. Very often we're missing some of the micronutrients, and people never think of things like molybdenum and manganese and other things, as well as zinc. Some would say is a micronutrient. Others say it's an essential nutrient. It's up for debate in some circles, but it depends on the form of these nutrients too. And if you get the right balance, I think, and balance is a funny thing because we talk about things like work-life balance. Your body has a balancing or homeostatic balancing act that it performs every single second of every single day. But I like to think of it more as terms of harmony rather than necessarily balancing. It's not like, a balanced diet could be a piece of cake in each hand.
Yeah, I mean, balance is a kind of a vague. What does that mean? It's sort of how do you put that into practical terms? So, if you feel good, you're probably doing a lot of good things. If you're not feeling good, there's something off. There's something off that needs addressing and needs some improvement, some change. So and often you need someone who is a professional that can help you identify what those things are, what you need to tweak or switch or change completely. So the body is a very finely tuned entity that you need to figure out, and with help.
It's funny. My dad used to refer to the human body as the vehicle by which the spiritual communicates with the physical world. He was very philosophical in that respect.
Yeah,
take care of your temple. Take care of the body. Is the temple.
I was going to say it's your temple, it's the divine, and we don't really function that. We don't really look at it that way, fast-paced culture that we have, and
to
we
be
just
the
expect it to work, right? Just
to
like our
be
computers.
well, it's not like an automobile where you can replace parts, although people do replace hearts and kidneys and other things like that. But the reality is it's not that easy to replace parts. So you got to take care of the parts you have. So
Well,
speaking to
I remember just one more thing, may I
yeah,
add? I remember when in our health coaching days,
yeah,
we were talking at one point, like, you know, no one knows how to create an apple. Nobody knows how to create an
right.
apple. And just like nobody really
Well,
knows how to
Steve
create
Jobs
a
did.
body. Nobody really, okay, let's talk about a pear. Let's talk about,
A pear.
nobody knows how to create a pear. And it's just so too, nobody really knows what goes into creating and maintaining and thriving the human body. We think we do. We don't certainly have a lot of medical knowledge and scientific knowledge and maybe even spiritual knowledge, but it is a miracle. We are a miracle.
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So, speaking of miracles and things that we create, we have another New Yorker, this time from upstate, Nick from Albany.
Albany,
Albany,
the capital.
the capital. He says, I'm planning to start a healthy eating plan in a few weeks. My first question is, why not now? How can I prepare for it? Any tips?
Well, that's an interesting thing you say, why not now? Well, sometimes it's actually a good idea to sort of prepare and plan. Maybe there's something going on in your life right now, Nick from Albany. And
Nick from Albany. Is that going to be his name forever? He should put it on his driver's license. Nick from Albany.
It probably is on his driver's license.
It's like I'm Brian, your cousin from Boston.
Brian from Boston.
Boston.
Yeah. I think we do have a Bostonian today, don't we?
We do.
We do. Anyway,
back to you, Nick. Yeah.
Back to you, Nick. I think I've lost my train of thought. We were talking.
Okay, so planning to start a healthy eating plan in a few weeks.
Sometimes we don't really know, or we do really. We don't have. It's not in our plan. Maybe you're working on a project and it's going to be completed in a week, and after that, you're going to focus strictly on your health. I mean, sometimes there's a detox program that you're going to start in a couple of weeks or whatever it is, just a healthy eating program, and that's fine. So, start, part of what you just said though, is why not start now? Start now with little incremental things.
Yeah, I was just saying,
start getting rid of things and bringing in things.
Put down the pint of Ben and Jerry's.
Or just put, maybe have a little bit of that, or start, going into your grocery store where you're picking up a few more things that you don't normally pick up.
A couple of apples. An apple a day will keep me away.
Yeah. And Steve Jobs knows that too, right?
Exactly. No, an apple a day never kept Steve Jobs away. I've got Apple products around me all over the place. So.
Okay, so an apple a day, or some carrots, or
something like carrots. Like celery sticks are amazing.
Broccoli, maybe you're not
organic celery is far more satisfying than the non-organic kind.
And why is that, Christopher?
It's sweeter. I kid you not.
Yeah.
It does have a better flavor profile.
Interesting. Yeah. I haven't had celery for a long time. I don't cook it because it's really, usually I'll bring vegetables into the home so I can also puree some of it for my husband, but it's really hard to puree celery. But I do have broccoli and asparagus, and he doesn't have that, and I do. So, start bringing things in slowly, working on your mindset, like what do I want to start bringing into my food? Start to change your palate. Start to improve your palate, and
remove the excess sugar and salt and fat. That's a good start.
I mean, some people just will go right to the day before they're going to start, and then cold turkey it, or it doesn't have to be as extreme as a cold turkey, but I know I've done things in the past where I'll have my coffee right till the day that I want to do whatever I want to do the next day. So that's fine too. Whatever works for you, but just make a plan. It's on your calendar, and don't say I'm going to do this in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks happen, and then
And it'd be another 2 weeks, and another
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
would be like the healthcare plan from the previous administration. I'm going to release
Make
it.
a commitment. Make a commitment, and it's easier. Yeah, it's easier when you have someone to work with. It doesn't.
Get a
It can be
coach.
a friend,
Get a
a
coach, a
coach.
nutritionist, a doctor,
It
whatever.
can be an online group. Someone
Yeah.
to hold you accountable will really help you.
Accountability and support are really good. I mean, a little bit of hand holding never hurts. I've had hired coaches just to do my hand holding for all kinds of internet marketing and other things and help me. Hey, so we have another person from the other side of the United States. We have Michelle from Sedona, Arizona. Michelle, I love Sedona. I've been there 3 times. I really like it a lot. You live in a beautiful area.
Michelle too.
Michelle with 2 L's, unlike my sister who has only 1. I think I have a hiatal hernia. Is there anything I can do aside from surgery?
Well, I'm gonna hand this over to you pretty quickly, but yeah, I know there are.
The food itself is one thing you can change.
There are chiropractic treatments for that, which I'll pass over to you in just a second. But what you want to do is eat less and smaller meals. That will definitely help you. Don't want to put too much pressure on that area. If in fact you do have symptoms already, and so you want to, basically what's happening is the diaphragm's been or the stomach's been pushing up into the diaphragm. So that's causing all sorts of concerns. It sounds like you feel like you're having some issues already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Monica mentioned chiropractic techniques, acupuncture. Chiropractic techniques are focused upon soft tissue manipulation, such that you can relax the diaphragm, and because you have the constriction of the diaphragm around, the portion of your stomach or the esophagus is coming down, and that's your problem right there. And you have to basically pull things. You have to shift the tissues around. Actually, even adjusting the vertebrae within the spine from cervical all the way down to mid-thoracic can have a tremendous effect. And you think about it also in terms of the vagus nerve. I'm not talking Las Vegas, even though Viva Las Vegas is a good song. The vagus nerve comes from the back of your skull and comes all the way down and innervates. It gives the nerve supply to the diaphragm. And so sometimes problems in the neck, the upper cervicals, can actually be contributing to the hiatal hernia. But there's a lot of different procedures. I love some of those other soft tissue work. There's acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine has a lot of things. I'm sure Ayurvedic medicine has something to do with alleviating hiatal hernias. I just don't know about that.
Well, they have some anti-inflammatory foods or herbs or whatever.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. So hopefully that helps you. I mean, surgery would be, God, that's the last thing you should be thinking about. Other than emergency surgery, it's rare that I recommend surgery for people because scar tissue formation and all kinds of problems with increased pain, that when you heal from surgery, you have more nerve fibers in the area where the incisions were made. And so
are you talking about any surgery or just specifically hiatal in this situation?
Well, I mean, hiatal surgery. I mean, if you can avoid surgery at all costs, I mean, I would say I like disc surgery, spinal surgery. Avoid that at all costs because the amount of scar tissue that proliferates in an area is horrendous. And the problem usually isn't solved by one surgery. Then they go back and do a second surgery and maybe a third surgery.
And then it gets even worse. It's worse.
And then it's scar tissue upon scar tissue upon scar tissue. Go for the least invasive things that you can think of.
The last line of therapy, right? The last
surgery is dead. We used to say dead last. So in fact, it's funny because one chiropractor I knew from upstate New York used to refer to chiropractic as bloodless surgery. I kind of like that. That was kind of cool.
It's like spiritual surgery.
Kind of, but actually bloodless insofar as you don't have to open up, you don't have to pierce the skin in order to get results. So we have our last person you alluded to earlier was Yuri from Boston. Yuri, you sound like you're Russian or Lithuanian or something.
Yes.
Oh, here we go. I was raised eating an Eastern European diet. How can I preserve some of the good aspects of this way of eating surrounded by the standard American diet, otherwise known as SAD, and the proliferation of fast food everywhere?
Yes. I hope you're having your borscht.
Borscht.
So good for your blood and gallbladder. Beets.
So Yuri, I don't know which part of Europe you're Eastern European. I mean, you could be everything from East Germany all the way up into Russia. But I would say that, some of the foods are not too bad as long as you I mean, I remember tons of vegetables in Russia and other places, except that everything was pickled to preserve during the winter. And I don't know, in some ways, I think the fact that you most likely enjoy vegetables, since they are actually really good in Eastern Europe, and they're not the bland tasting veggies we have in the US, unless you go into organic or locally raised produce. I think the more veggies, that's what I did notice. Eastern European diets are very rich in vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, I know all about Eastern European
Yeah.
food. I mean, it's usually very focused on whole and natural, and
Yeah.
there isn't the plethora of, fast food and box foods, although it may be
It's
more so
changing.
now.
It is changing.
But
Since
yeah,
yeah. I was going to say, since the reunification of Germany, the East Germans are eating much better than they did under the GDR. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at Poland and Ukraine and Bulgaria and all these other they used to be called Eastern Bloc countries. I mean, their diet is pretty, focused on, food from the ground and vegetables and
there is
potatoes are big too. Potatoes are good, big.
Yeah, there's a lot of potatoes and stuff. I mean, there is a proliferation of bulmeni, or the different types of dumplings.
Dumplings. Oh yeah, we used to eat a lot of potato dumplings. Was never my favorite.
No.
Plum dumplings. I mean, I love pierogies and I love holubchi. I don't know if holubchi are basically cabbage rolls, and even though my parents were German, they did grow up in an Eastern European environment, so I grew up with all that stuff, and it's so good. Like cabbage rolls, fresh, homemade, borscht, homemade, wonderful. Pierogies. Pierogies? Do you?
Pierogi, or in the Russian version was they call them pierogi.
Vareniki. I think vareniki are also something, but or similar to that. But that's
yeah. So the question is,
bulgur wheat is another thing that they use a lot.
I mean, preserving the good aspects, of the whole foods. You're not necessarily going to be eating tons of dumplings and pickled foods. You don't see as much of pickled vegetables. Sauerkraut is good.
I've never been a big fan, like you with olives. I've never been a big fan of sauerkraut, but we had it all the time. And
see, we never had it. And so now I am a fan of sauerkraut.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. My mother made it all the time in this big vat, this big sauerkraut vat. So, but you know what? According to my Ayurvedic constitution, it's not a good thing for me. Sour foods aren't a good thing. So, hallelujah, I don't have to have it.
Is that for the pitta, the vata, or both?
Fermentation? Yeah, I should not be eating fermentation. And I did love olives recently. I didn't growing up, just like you. And there again are not good for my specific constitution. The sourness.
Is that the vata or the pitta or the?
It's the pitta.
The pitta.
The pitta. Yeah.
Interesting. So it means that chocolate Hershey's is good for you because it's sweet.
Well, and that's the difference between what is sweet. Sweet is not necessarily sugar in Ayurveda. Sweet is fruit. Sweet is
fructose is sugar, isn't it?
Can be fruit, but fructose and fructose packaged in like foods and packaged foods is not the same thing as fructose in a fruit. It's not the same thing. It's not synthetic. It's not synthetic. It's not. It's got all the other things in the actual food that can process and utilize it the way it's supposed to be utilized. But we're talking about fructose. The bad fructose is what's found in like a lot of drinks, a lot of.
I think you misunderstood. I was actually referring to the good natural fructose, but in excess is the problem. So I remember
having 10 oranges,
having 2 pounds of cherries at a sitting, for example. I know people who've done that sort of thing, or eating like 5 oranges, for example, at a single sitting.
Or even just orange juice, because
just the juice. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
So okay. So I went off on a tangent, but
you went to corn syrup. You went to high fructose corn syrup.
Fructose corn syrup. Yeah. I mean, but a lot of people get confused about what fructose is. Yeah. So the sweetness also can be the sweetness of a grain, like rice has a sweetness. Actually, meat and fish have
Or-
a sweetness.
Or organic celery that I just mentioned earlier.
Organic celery, the sweetness
Hard to
of
believe.
that. Yes,
It
carrots.
does- yeah, carrots are very sweet.
Potatoes.
Yeah.
Lots of vegetables have the sweetness to them as well. Yeah.
I find that millet and amaranth both had a little sweetness to them.
Well, rice, most grains have a sweetness.
Yeah.
Like the aftertaste is always sweet, and meat and fish too.
Mm-hmm. Fish especially. I have noticed
Yeah.
the sweetness in seafood.
Yeah.
But you don't notice that if your palate is bombarded with fast food.
Yeah. Or you're so heightened, your taste buds are so heightened to super sweet or super salty, or even.
Or the only way you're going to eat fish is if it's battered and breaded and deep fried. That's a real challenge, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think we've run out of questions for today, but I was glad we got to answer all of you, which is
really great questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the question gods and to all of you, Matt and everybody. So, all right, any final remarks before we?
I think not. Stay tuned and stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week for episode 54. I remember being 54. That was a good age. All right.
Then, bye-bye.
Bye.